The Galactic Union was a shining beacon of unity, or so they claimed. For centuries, alien civilizations from across the stars gathered to negotiate peace, trade, and the balance of power. They built massive, breathtaking halls where decisions that shaped entire galaxies were made. Yet, among all the voices echoing in these chambers, humanity's was noticeably absent. Humans were considered too young, too reckless, too small to matter. When humanity made their first foray into space, the Galactic Union observed but did not engage. When humans colonized their first planet, they dismissed it as a beginner's luck. And when humanity reached out, eager to learn, the Union turned away. The official reason was always the same. Humanity had nothing to offer. The unofficial truth was harsher. Most alien species saw humans as a liability, a potential disruptor to their meticulously curated order. Despite the snub, humanity thrived. They expanded their colonies, developed their technology, and built a society that didn't rely on alien guidance. While humanity lacked advanced weaponry or the deep-rooted traditions of older species, they had a tenacity that made them unique. They adapted, innovated, and endured in ways the Union couldn't predict. But even as humanity grew stronger, the Union remained steadfast in its exclusion. That was until the Pharynx swarms arrived. The Pharynx were an ancient terror, predatory hive minds that moved from star system to star system, devouring everything in their path. Entire fleets had tried and failed to stop them. Planets were reduced to lifeless husks. The Galactic Union had faced many challenges in its long history, but none as relentless as the Pharynx. Their numbers seemed infinite, their strategy was brutal, and their hunger was insatiable. At first, the Union believed their combined forces would hold the line. They sent their most advanced fleets, their most seasoned commanders. It wasn't enough. One by one, their strongholds fell. The Pharynx were no mere invaders. They were extinction incarnate. Desperation began to seep into the Union's ranks. Old rivalries flared. Accusations flew. The unity they prided themselves on began to fracture. Some species argued for surrender, hoping the Pharynx would spare them if they submitted. Others advocated retreat, abandoning entire sectors to buy time. A few even suggested the unthinkable, using forbidden weapons that would burn entire systems to deny the Pharynx their prize. But none of these options promised survival. And so, with their backs against the wall, the Galactic Union did something unprecedented. They'd reached out to humanity. The message came as a shock. For generations, humanity had been ignored, treated as little more than a curious footnote in galactic history. Now, the very same Union that had refused to acknowledge them was asking for help. The request was couched in diplomatic language, but the desperation was clear. The Union needed humanity to hold the line, to stand as the last bastion against annihilation. For the first time, humanity had a seat at the table. The meeting was tense. Representatives from the Union's most powerful species gathered in a grand, circular chamber aboard one of their remaining capital ships. They had been expecting a humble delegation from Earth, eager to prove their worth. What they got was something else entirely. Humanity's leaders were not meek or subservient. They did not grovel or plead for acceptance. Instead, they stood with quiet confidence, their presence commanding the room. They had brought with them not only their military officers, but also their engineers, scientists, and tacticians. They came prepared, not to beg for inclusion, but to prove that they were humanity's best chance of survival. "We're not here to clean up your mess," one of the human representatives said firmly, their voice carrying through the chamber. "We'll fight, not for you, but for everyone who still has a chance to live." The Union's representatives bristled at the tone, but they couldn't deny the truth. Humanity was their last hope. As the meeting progressed, humanity's approach to the crisis became clear. They didn't rely on overwhelming firepower or ancient strategies. Instead, they focused on adaptability and ingenuity. While the Union's fleets had been shattered by trying to match the Pharynx head-on, humanity proposed something different: a blend of guerrilla tactics, advanced signal interference, and the strategic use of their smaller, faster ships. "We can't outgun them," one human commander explained, "but we can outsmart them. We've done it before, and we'll do it again." The Union's veterans were skeptical. Humanity's ships were smaller and less advanced. Their technology was decades behind the Union's best. But as the humans outlined their plan, a flicker of hope began to take root. The stakes were clear. If humanity failed, there would be no second chance. The Pharynx would consume Earth and every colony beyond it. And yet there was a strange sense of calm among the humans. They had faced extinction before, on their own planet, in the wars that nearly tore them apart, and in the relentless challenges of space. They had survived every time. As the Union and humanity finalized their plans, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, was now the last line of defense. Their ships, though fewer in number, carried the hopes of countless worlds. Their soldiers, though untested in galactic warfare, stood ready to fight. The battle was coming. The Pharynx were closing in on the last fortified system, a choke point that, if lost, would open the path to the Union's core worlds. There was no room for error. As the human fleet prepared to launch, their leader delivered a simple message to the Union and to their own people. "We weren't invited to your councils, your alliances, or your history. But now, when everything you've built is on the line, you turn to us. Remember this moment, not for what we'll do, but for what it will mean. Humanity doesn't just survive. We defend." The words echoed through the vast chambers of the capital ship. Some in the Union doubted. Others hoped. But all would soon witness what humanity was truly capable of. And as the first wave of Pharynx ships emerged from the black void of space, the humans held their ground, unflinching. The fate of the galaxy now rested in their hands. The human fleet drifted in the quiet void, each vessel a testament to resilience and resourcefulness. These weren't the sleek, polished crafts of the Galactic Union. Human ships were practical, rugged, and built with a singular purpose: survival. While the Union fleets boasted grandeur and sophistication, humanity's ships carried the scars of countless challenges, each dent and welled a story of ingenuity and grit. The Pharynx swarms had been spotted on long-range sensors, their ships an eerie, living mass that blotted out the stars. There was no mistaking their intent. Wherever they went, only silence followed. The Union's finest fleets had crumbled before them, their advanced technology unable to withstand the relentless onslaught. Now, humanity stood in their path, the only barrier between annihilation and survival. As the human fleet prepared, conversations buzzed across the ships. Soldiers, engineers, and officers shared quiet moments, their words laced with determination and uncertainty. They weren't just fighting for themselves. Every man and woman on those ships knew they carried the hopes of billions, humans and aliens alike. In the command center of the flagship, the atmosphere was tense. Screens glowed with data, tracking every movement of the approaching swarm. Officers huddled around a central table, their faces illuminated by the holographic map of the battlefield. The fleet's commander, a figure whose presence seemed to anchor the room, studied the display with a calm intensity. They had spent years preparing for a moment like this, though none could have imagined the stakes would be so high. "This isn't just another battle," the commander said, their voice steady. "This is our proving ground. If we falter, we prove them right. That we're too young, too reckless. But if we stand, we show them who we really are." The officers nodded, their resolve hardening. Each had their reasons for being there: family, duty, a belief in humanity's potential. But now, those reasons converged into a singular purpose. Across the fleet, the engineers worked tirelessly, fine-tuning systems and weapons. They knew their technology wasn't as advanced as the Union's, but what humanity lacked in resources, they made up for with innovation. One of the engineers, a seasoned veteran who had spent years working on Earth's orbital platforms, smiled grimly as they adjusted the targeting systems. "Let them underestimate us," they muttered under their breath. "They always do." Meanwhile, in the mess halls and barracks, soldiers prepared themselves. Conversations ranged from quiet determination to nervous humor, a way to lighten the weight of what was to come. One young recruit, barely out of training, stared out a viewport at the distant stars. "Do you think they'll remember us?" they asked, their voice barely audible. Another soldier, older and with a weariness that spoke of hard-earned experience, placed a hand on their shoulder. "They will," they said firmly, "not because of what we're about to do, but because of how we do it. We fight for more than just survival. We fight for hope." As the minutes ticked by, the fleet moved into position. Each ship had a role to play, from the fast corvettes designed for hit-and-run tactics to the heavily armed cruisers that would form the backbone of their defense. The strategy was unorthodox, a mix of human ingenuity and hard-learned lessons. It was a gamble, but it was the best they had. The Union's representatives, watching from a secure observation station, were a mix of skeptical and hopeful. They had seen humanity's confidence before and dismissed it as arrogance. Now, they wondered if they had been wrong. One of the Union officials, their voice tinged with disbelief, turned to a colleague. "Do you really think they can hold them off?" The colleague hesitated, watching the human fleet's movements on the display. "If they fail, we're all doomed," they said quietly. "But if they succeed, it changes everything." The tension in the observation station was palpable. For centuries, the Union had dismissed humanity, seeing them as little more than a footnote in galactic history. Now those same humans were all that stood between them and extinction. Back in the fleet, the first alarms began to sound. The Pharynx swarms were closing in, their ships moving like a tidal wave of darkness. Humanity's ships powered up their weapons, the hum of energy filling the air as systems came online. Crews braced themselves, knowing that the moment of truth was at hand. The commander's voice echoed through the fleet, transmitted to every ship and every soldier. "We've trained for this. We've planned for this. And now we face it together. Remember why you're here. Remember who you're fighting for. And above all, remember this. We are humanity. We don't run. We don't break. We fight." Cheers erupted across the fleet, a rallying cry that cut through the fear and uncertainty. The Pharynx were a force of nature, but humanity had faced impossible odds before. This was no different. As the swarm entered firing range, the first shots were fired. Beams of energy and missiles streaked through the void, illuminating the darkness in bursts of light. Humanity's ships moved with precision, their smaller size and agility allowing them to weave through the chaos. The Pharynx ships, massive and overwhelming, surged forward, their numbers seemingly endless. The battle was brutal, each moment a test of endurance and strategy. Human ships darted in and out, striking where the Pharynx were weakest before retreating to safety. The Union's observers watched in stunned silence, their disbelief slowly giving way to awe. "They're holding the line," one of them whispered. But the humans knew this was only the beginning. The Pharynx swarms were relentless, and every victory came at a cost. Ships were lost, lives were sacrificed, but the line held. And as the battle raged on, something began to shift. The Pharynx, for all their overwhelming numbers, seemed to hesitate. Humanity's tactics were unlike anything they had faced before. It wasn't just brute force. It was a combination of ingenuity, courage, and determination. The commander, watching the battle unfold, allowed a small smile to cross their face. "They're not invincible," they said softly. And now they know it. But even as humanity gained ground, the threat loomed larger than ever. The Pharynx were adapting, learning from their failures. And with every passing moment, the stakes grew higher. The Union's representatives exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had proven themselves in ways no one had expected, But the battle was far from over. The swarm was vast, and the fight was just beginning. And somewhere, deep within the swarm, a new threat stirred, a force that would test humanity's resolve like never before. The battle was a symphony of chaos, each second stretching into an eternity. The human fleet moved like a living organism, every ship playing its part in the intricate dance of survival. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, bright bursts against the cold void, as humanity continued to hold the line against the relentless Pharynx swarm. Yet, the strain was beginning to show. Hulls cracked under the weight of sustained fire. Energy reserves dwindled as systems pushed far beyond their limits. Crews worked tirelessly, their movements a blur as they fought to keep their ships operational. In the command center of the flagship, the tension was palpable. Data streamed across screens, reports of damage and losses coming in faster than anyone could process. The commander's voice remained steady, issuing orders with precision. They knew hesitation could mean death, and their confidence was the anchor keeping the fleet together. But even they couldn't ignore the creeping dread building in the back of their mind. The Pharynx were adapting, their tactics shifting in response to humanity's ingenuity. On the outer edge of the battlefield, a human destroyer veered sharply to avoid a barrage of organic projectiles from a massive Pharynx ship. The smaller vessel retaliated with a volley of missiles, striking the enemy's weak point and causing a fiery rupture. Cheers erupted in the destroyer's bridge, but the celebration was short-lived as another Pharynx ship loomed into view. The swarm seemed endless. No matter how many they destroyed, more emerged from the void, each wave more coordinated than the last. Humanity's tactics, while effective, couldn't completely offset the sheer scale of the enemy. In the observation station, the Union representatives watched with growing unease. Their initial skepticism had turned into reluctant admiration, but that admiration was now shadowed by fear. One of the officials turned to the station's commander, their voice trembling. "How long can they keep this up?" The commander didn't answer immediately. They stared at the display, watching as another human frigate was torn apart in a fiery explosion. "They're buying us time," the commander finally said, their tone heavy. "But time won't matter if we don't find a way to end this." Back on the flagship, the commander of the human fleet stood at the center of the chaos. Their eyes were locked on the holographic display, analyzing the swarm's movements. The Pharynx were converging, their attacks becoming more focused. It was clear they had identified the flagship as the fleet's nerve center. "They're coming for us," an officer said, their voice tight with tension. "Let them," the commander replied calmly. "They want a decisive blow. We'll give them one." The plan was desperate, bordering on reckless, but it was the only option. The flagship would become the bait, drawing the swarm's attention while the rest of the fleet executed a coordinated strike. It was a gamble that relied on timing, precision, and a level of coordination that had never been tested in battle. As the orders went out, the fleet began to shift. Smaller ships moved into position, their engines glowing as they prepared for the maneuver. The flagship held its ground, firing relentlessly at the approaching swarm. Every crew member aboard knew the risks. They were the target now, the focus of the Pharynx's fury. In the engine room, technicians worked frantically to keep the system stable. The air was thick with heat and the smell of burning circuits as they rerouted power and repaired damage on the fly. One of them, a young engineer covered in soot, wiped sweat from their brow and muttered to themselves, "We've come too far to die here." On the bridge, the tension was suffocating. The swarm was closing in, their ships moving like a tidal wave of destruction. The flagship's weapons fired in every direction, but it was clear they couldn't hold out forever. "Status on the fleet?" the commander asked, their voice cutting through the noise. "They're in position," an officer replied, "awaiting your signal." The commander nodded, their jaw set with determination. They took a deep breath and gave the order. "Execute." The fleet sprang into action. Smaller ships darted forward, their weapons targeting the Pharynx ships with surgical precision. Coordinated strikes hit the swarm's weak points, disrupting their formation and creating chaos in their ranks. The flagship, still firing with everything it had, became a beacon of defiance. For a moment, it seemed to be working. The phalanx hesitated, their relentless advance faltering as they tried to adapt to the sudden shift in tactics. But then, something changed. A new signal appeared on the sensors, something massive far larger than any ship humanity or the Union had ever encountered. It emerged from the depths of the swarm, its size dwarfing even the flagship. The phalanx had brought their apex predator, a leviathan designed to end battles and crush resistance. The sight of the massive ship sent a ripple of fear through the fleet. It was unlike anything they had faced before, a living fortress bristling with organic weaponry. The Union representatives watching from the station gasped in unison, their hope beginning to waver. On the flagship, the commander stared at the display, their expression unreadable. "All ships, maintain formation," they ordered, their voice steady despite the growing tension. "Do not break. We've come too far to falter now." The Leviathan moved with terrifying speed, its weapons firing in devastating salvos. Smaller human ships were obliterated in seconds, their debris scattering across the battlefield. The flagship took a direct hit, the impact shaking the entire vessel. Alarms blared, and the crew scrambled to stabilize the ship. "We've lost shields on the port side," an officer shouted. "Divert power from non-essential systems," the commander replied. "Keep firing." The human fleet continued to fight, their resolve unshaken despite the overwhelming odds. But the Leviathan was relentless, its sheer size and firepower threatening to tip the balance. In the observation station, the Union representatives watched in stunned silence. One of them turned to their colleague, their voice barely above a whisper. "They can't win this," they said, their tone filled with despair. But another representative, their gaze fixed on the human struggle, shook their head. "They won't stop," they said quietly. "Not until the very end." The battle reached a fever pitch, the void filled with fire and fury. Humanity's ingenuity and determination had brought them this far, but the Leviathan loomed as an insurmountable obstacle. Every ship lost, every life sacrificed, added to the weight of the moment. And then, as the flagship took another devastating hit, the commander made a decision. "Send the signal," they said, their voice resolute. The officer hesitated for a moment before nodding. They entered the command, and a message was broadcast across the fleet. "This is it," the commander said, their voice echoing through every ship. "We've given everything we have. Now we take the fight to them. For humanity. For the galaxy." The fleet began to move, their formation shifting into a final desperate assault. The Leviathan loomed ahead, its weapons charging for a devastating strike. Every crew member knew the odds, but they pressed forward, their resolve unshaken. The galaxy watched, holding its breath as humanity prepared to face its greatest challenge. The final moment was at hand, the outcome uncertain, and in the heart of the chaos, humanity stood defiant, ready to prove once and for all that they were more than anyone had ever believed. The fleet surged forward, the human ships a wave of defiance against the Leviathan that dwarfed them in size and power. Every weapon was fired. Every ounce of strength poured into this final charge. The air in the flagship was thick with tension, the crew gripping their consoles as the vibrations from near misses and direct hits shook the entire vessel. The Leviathan's organic cannons fired relentlessly, each blast a near-deafening reminder of the odds they faced. Then, something unexpected happened. Just as the human fleet began their final assault, the Leviathan hesitated. Its movements slowed, its weapons firing less frequently, as though it was analyzing or reconsidering its approach. For a moment, the battlefield grew eerily quiet, the humans and even the observing Union forces unsure of what was happening. On the flagship, the commander narrowed their eyes at the display. "Why are they slowing down?" they asked aloud, their voice cutting through the murmurs of the bridge crew. Before anyone could answer, a new signal appeared on the sensors. At first, it was faint, almost imperceptible, but it grew rapidly in strength. The Leviathan turned sharply, its focus shifting away from the humans entirely. It was as though something had commanded its attention, something even it couldn't ignore. From the void emerged a ship unlike any other. Its sleek, reflective surface glinted against the light of distant stars, and it moved with an elegance that seemed almost unnatural. The humans stared in awe and confusion. This was not one of theirs, nor was it a design they recognized from any Union or known alien fleet. "New contact detected," an officer announced, their voice trembling. "It's massive." The commander's gaze hardened as they took in the readings. This new arrival was larger than even the Leviathan, its energy readings off the charts. And yet, it didn't attack. It simply hovered, as though observing the chaos around it. "Who are they?" the commander muttered. The Union representatives in their observation station were equally stunned. Whispers broke out among them, theories and fears spreading like wildfire. Could this be an ally, a new enemy, or something else entirely? The Leviathan's hesitation didn't last long. With a guttural roar that reverberated through the vacuum of space, it turned its full attention to the newcomer. The Pharynx swarm followed suit, their formation breaking apart as they redirected their forces. For the first time, the humans weren't the primary target. But this wasn't a reprieve. The humans quickly realized that the Leviathan's distraction didn't mean safety. The Pharynx weren't retreating. They were shifting their strategy. Smaller groups of their ships began to peel off, targeting isolated human vessels and leaving destruction in their wake. It was a brutal, calculated move, designed to chip away at humanity's resolve while their attention was divided. The commander acted quickly, rallying the fleet to regroup. Orders were barked, and ships scrambled to protect one another from the Pharynx's renewed assault. All the while, the mysterious ship remained silent, its presence looming over the battlefield like a specter. Then, without warning, the newcomer made its move. A beam of light shot out from its hull, slicing through the Pharynx swarm with devastating precision. Ships disintegrated in an instant, their organic hulls no match for the mysterious weapon. The Leviathan roared again, this time with what could only be described as fury. It charged the newcomer, its massive bulk accelerating at an alarming speed. The humans watched in stunned silence as the two behemoths clashed. The newcomer's weapons lit up the void, each shot a blinding display of power. The Leviathan fought back with equal ferocity, its organic cannons firing relentlessly. The battlefield became a maelstrom of energy and destruction, the two giants locked in a battle that shook the very fabric of space. For a brief moment, hope flickered among the humans. If this new ship could hold its own against the Leviathan, perhaps they had a chance. But that hope was short-lived. As the newcomer fired another devastating beam, its energy readings spiked dramatically. On the flagship, alarms blared as the sensors picked up a catastrophic buildup of energy within the mysterious ship. "Commander, it's unstable," an officer shouted. The commander's heart sank as they realized what was happening. The newcomer wasn't here to save them. It was self-destructing. "Get us clear of the blast radius," they ordered, their voice cutting through the chaos. The fleet scrambled to comply, engines flaring as ships veered away from the epicenter. But the Pharynx weren't so lucky. The Leviathan and its swarm were too focused on the battle to notice the danger. With a blinding flash, the newcomer detonated. The explosion was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, a wave of energy that rippled through the void, obliterating everything in its path. The Leviathan was caught in the blast, its massive form breaking apart as the shockwave tore through it. The swarm was decimated, their organic ships disintegrating in an instant. The humans, though battered and shaken, managed to escape the worst of it. The flagship trembled as the shockwave passed, the crew bracing themselves against the force. When the light finally faded, the battlefield was eerily quiet. The Pharynx were gone. The Leviathan was no more. And yet, The humans couldn't celebrate. The mysterious ship had sacrificed itself to save them, but its origins and intentions remained a mystery. Back on the observation station, the Union representatives sat in stunned silence. The battle was over, but the questions it raised were just beginning. "Who are they?" one of them finally asked, their voice barely audible. No one had an answer. On the flagship, the commander stood at the center of the bridge, their gaze fixed on the empty void where the newcomer had been. "Prepare a report," they said quietly. "Every detail, every reading. We need to know what just happened." The crew began to move, their actions mechanical as they processed the events. The relief of survival was overshadowed by the weight of what they had witnessed. As the fleet regrouped, a faint signal crackled through the comms. It was weak, almost imperceptible, but it carried a message. "We are watching." The words sent a chill through everyone who heard them. The mystery deepened, the stakes higher than ever. Humanity had survived, but the battle had revealed a truth far more complex and unsettling than they could have imagined. The galaxy was larger, more dangerous, and more interconnected than anyone had realized. And humanity, for all its resilience, was still only beginning to understand its place among the stars. The silence that followed the explosion felt heavier than any noise. The crew aboard the human flagship sat frozen, their minds struggling to process what they had just survived. The Leviathan, the Swarm, and even the mysterious Savior were all gone, wiped out in a single blinding moment of unimaginable destruction. Yet the cryptic message that lingered over the comms, "We are watching," kept the tension alive, wrapping the crew in an uneasy silence. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, their face a mix of exhaustion and determination. The relief of surviving was muted by a gnawing sense of incompleteness. Something about the situation didn't sit right, as though the real danger was only beginning to reveal itself. "Damage report," the commander ordered, their voice cutting through the stillness. The crew scrambled back to their stations, checking systems and running diagnostics. Reports came in from across the fleet. Many ships were damaged, a few severely, but the majority of the fleet was intact. Against all odds, humanity had endured. "We've taken heavy losses," an officer reported, their tone grim. "But we're still here." The commander nodded, their eyes narrowing as they looked at the empty void where the mysterious ship had vanished. "And the Leviathan?" "Destroyed," the officer confirmed. No trace left on sensors. A ripple of relief passed through the bridge, but it was short-lived. The commander's instincts told them the situation wasn't as resolved as it seemed. The Leviathan's destruction, while monumental, didn't explain the appearance of the mysterious ship or the cryptic message it had left behind. "Open a secure channel to all ships," the commander said, their tone firm. "We need to regroup and assess. This isn't over." As the fleet slowly came together, their battered ships forming a loose formation, a new signal appeared on the sensors. It was faint at first, barely registering against the background noise of the void, but it grew stronger with each passing second. "Commander," an officer said, their voice shaking, "we're picking up another energy signature. It's similar to the one we saw before." The tension on the bridge spiked. Everyone's eyes were glued to the displays, watching as the signal grew closer. It didn't take long for the source to become visible, a massive ship, even larger than the mysterious one that had sacrificed itself, emerged from the darkness. Its design was sleek and alien, yet undeniably similar to the first ship. "Another one," someone whispered, their voice tinged with disbelief. The commander stared at the screen, their jaw tightening. This new arrival wasn't firing its weapons or making any hostile moves. Instead, it hovered at the edge of the fleet, its presence a silent declaration of power. "Are they friend or foe?" the commander asked, though they knew no one could answer. Before anyone could react further, a voice came through the comms. It was calm, measured, and unmistakably alien. "You have proven yourselves," the voice said, its tone devoid of malice. "But the test is not yet complete. The word sent a chill through the bridge. The commander's mind raced. A test. Had the entire battle been orchestrated, a way to measure humanity's strength and resolve? "Identify yourself," the commander demanded, their voice steady despite the weight of the situation. The response was immediate. "We are the Watchers, caretakers of balance in this galaxy. The Pharynx were a threat beyond your understanding, and you have shown the courage to stand against them. But courage alone is not enough." The bridge was silent as the crew absorbed the words. The commander's mind reeled. The Watchers, an ancient unseen force that had apparently been observing the galaxy all along. Their intervention wasn't an act of mercy, but a calculated test. "What do you want from us?" the commander asked, their tone sharp. "To prove your worth," the Watcher replied. "Your species stands at a crossroads. You have the potential to bring unity or destruction. We intervene today to give you a choice." The tension in the air was palpable. The commander clenched their fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Humanity had fought and bled for survival, only to discover they were pawns in some grander scheme. "And if we refuse?" the commander challenged. The Watcher's response was calm, almost dismissive. "Then you will face the consequences of your actions alone. The Pharynx were not the only threat in this galaxy, nor are they the greatest. Without guidance, your path will be fraught with destruction." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. The commander took a deep breath, their mind racing through the possibilities. This was a chance to secure humanity's place in the galaxy, but at what cost? Before they could respond, the Watcher added, "Your decision will not only shape your future, but the future of every species in this galaxy. Choose wisely." The connection cut off, leaving the humans to grapple with the gravity of the situation. The new ship remained motionless, a silent observer as the fleet deliberated. In the observation station, the Union representatives were equally stunned. The Watchers were an enigma even to them, their existence long speculated, but never confirmed. Now, humanity's fate hung in the balance, and the galaxy watched with bated breath. The commander turned to their crew, their voice steady but resolute. "We didn't come this far to be controlled. Humanity's strength lies in its freedom, its ability to adapt and overcome. We'll face whatever comes next on our terms." A murmur of agreement spread through the bridge. The decision was made. Humanity would forge its own path, no matter the risks. But as the fleet began to move, preparing to leave the battlefield behind, a new signal appeared. This one was unlike anything they had seen before, an intricate pattern of energy that defied explanation. It wasn't coming from the Watcher's ship, but from deep within the wreckage of the Pharynx swarm. The commander's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" The officer at the sensors frowned. "It's some kind of transmission. A distress signal, but it's encoded." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Pharynx were defeated, their forces annihilated. But this signal suggested otherwise. The commander's voice was firm. "Decode it. Now." As the crew worked to unravel the signal, the Watcher's ship began to move. Without a word, it vanished into the void, leaving humanity alone once more. But the message it left behind lingered, a chilling reminder of the unknown forces at play. When the signal was finally decoded, the bridge fell silent. The message was simple, yet it carried an ominous weight. "They are coming." The words hung in the air, their meaning clear. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Humanity had proven its strength, but the galaxy was far from safe, and as the fleet prepared for the challenges ahead, one thing was certain: the Watchers would be watching. The fleet drifted in the aftermath, the silence of space heavy with the weight of their choices. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, their gaze fixed on the distant stars. The cryptic message, "They are coming," lingered in their mind, a haunting reminder of what lay ahead. For now, the immediate threat was gone, but the galaxy had just become infinitely more complex. Across the fleet, Crews worked tirelessly to repair damaged systems and tend to the wounded. The scars of the battle were etched into every ship, a testament to humanity's resilience and the steep cost of survival. Conversations buzzed over comm channels as officers and soldiers tried to process the Watchers' revelation. What had started as a fight for survival had evolved into something far greater, a role humanity had never anticipated but could no longer avoid. In the command center of the flagship, the tension began to give way to reflection. The Union delegates, who had remained silent since the Watchers' departure, finally spoke. Their tone was one of awe and apprehension. "You refused their offer," one said, their voice tinged with disbelief. "Do you understand what that means? The Watchers are not to be defied lightly." The commander turned to face them, their expression unwavering. "We didn't come this far to trade one overlord for another. Humanity's strength lies in its ability to choose its own destiny. We'll face whatever comes, but we'll do it on our terms." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall under the Watchers' gaze, and they knew the price of defiance. Yet something about humanity's resolve made them pause. This species, so young compared to the ancient powers of the galaxy, had an unshakable spirit that was hard to dismiss. The decoded message from the Pharynx debris added another layer of uncertainty. They are coming. Who were they? Was it a remnant of the Pharynx, some greater faction, or an entirely new threat? The possibilities were endless, and the answers elusive. The commander called a council of the fleet's senior officers and representatives. It was a time for unity, not division. Humanity had to prepare for what lay ahead, and that required more than ships and weapons. It required strategy, trust, and a shared vision for the future. "We faced the impossible and survived," the commander said, addressing the gathered leaders. "We've seen the strength of our enemies and the power of the unknown, but we've also seen what we're capable of when we stand together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it as one people, united and unyielding." The room erupted in a wave of agreement, a collective affirmation of their shared purpose. Plans were quickly set in motion. The fleet would regroup at a secure location, assess their resources, and prepare for the long road ahead. The Watchers' warning, though ominous, also served as a motivation to prove that humanity was capable of standing on its own. As the fleet moved away from the battlefield, the Union representatives sent their own message to their respective governments. Humanity's actions had sent ripples through the galaxy, and every major power would be watching closely. The fragile balance of alliances and rivalries was shifting, and humanity was now a key player in the unfolding drama. On board the flagship, the mood was one of quiet determination. The crew, though weary, found solace in their survival and the knowledge that they had done what no one else could. They had faced the Leviathan, resisted the Watchers, and uncovered a greater threat. And through it all, they had stayed true to their values. In the quiet hours, as the fleet traversed the vastness of space, the commander took a moment to reflect. They thought of the lives lost, the sacrifices made, and the incredible resilience of their people. The Watchers' words echoed in their mind. Your species stands at a crossroads. Humanity had chosen its path, but it was one filled with uncertainty and danger. The encoded message from the Pharynx remained a troubling mystery. Analysts and scientists worked around the clock to decipher any additional meaning, but no clear answers emerged. The commander suspected that the true nature of the warning would only reveal itself in time. Until then, preparation was their only option. The fleet reached its rendezvous point, a hidden station in an uncharted system. It was a place of refuge and rebuilding, where humanity could regroup and prepare for the challenges ahead. Engineers and scientists began to analyze the data gathered from the battle, hoping to unlock new technologies and strategies. In the months that followed, humanity transformed. The battle had forged a stronger sense of unity among its people, a shared understanding of what was at stake. The Watchers' presence, though unnerving, served as a reminder of the galaxy's complexity and the importance of vigilance. The commander stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching as the fleet grew stronger. New ships were being constructed, old ones repaired and upgraded. Alliances were being forged with other species, some eager to align with humanity's defiance, others wary but intrigued. The cryptic warning, "They are coming," remained at the forefront of everyone's minds. It was a puzzle they couldn't solve but couldn't ignore. Whatever lay ahead, humanity would face it with courage and determination. As the flagship prepared for its next mission, the commander turned to their crew, a sense of pride and purpose evident in their expression. "We've been tested, and we've proven our strength. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy is watching, and we will show them what humanity is capable of." The crew responded with a resounding cheer, their voices echoing through the ship. It was a moment of unity and hope, a promise that they would rise to whatever challenge came next. And as the fleet moved forward, leaving the safety of the station behind, humanity's journey into the unknown continued. They had faced the abyss and emerged stronger. Now, they would carve their place in the galaxy, not as pawns, but as pioneers of their own destiny. In the vast expanse of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if bearing witness to humanity's resolve. The future was uncertain, the challenges immense, but the spirit of humanity burned brighter than ever. And in that moment, as the flagship led the fleet into the unknown, one truth became clear: humanity's story was far from over.